What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, how you can raise funds for your passion, and you can raise funds for a new project, get a product out there into the world, and how to do this in the minimum number of steps. So it's not gonna cause you too much headache. So I try to break this down as easy as possible, try to demystify the process for you. And today we're talking about updates when it comes to your Kickstarter, your Indiegogo campaign, and we're getting into that in just a second. Okay, brother, welcome back to this channel. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. So we're gonna be talking about Kickstarter updates, but also Indiegogo. Some people have been like, hey Sal, why are you always talking about Kickstarter, right? Why are you always mentioning Kickstarter? What about Indiegogo? Dude, I love to talk about Indiegogo. I got a ton of videos out there on Indiegogo. And just in terms of audience size, Kickstarter is much larger. It tends to skew to more of my audience in that way, but I have no bias whatsoever. I got started in this industry in 2012. I started my podcast in 2015. I started my YouTube channel like a year after or thereabouts. So I have absolutely no bias when it comes to either platform. I love working with both of them. I had successful campaigns on both of them. I love helping people with both of them. A lot of my coaching students are doing Kickstarter campaigns, Indiegogo campaigns. We got a lot more coaching students doing WeFunder campaigns, raising investment capital using crowdfunding. So a lot of really cool stuff, nonprofit fundraisers, etc. So I'm really not biased. I'm really just here to help you. I'm here to try to break this down. And for me, the reason is that it's just so frustrating when people use big words that are difficult to understand. And also when it's just really not that interesting at all, just going through and boring documents related to crowdfunding that just aren't really good at explaining anything, right? So let's talk about updates. First of all, what is the function of updates? Let's go through how you do a good update. Let's talk about frequency. Let's talk about different types of categories. Let's get into all this because I want to nerd out on you, right? So let's get into Kickstarter updates. So the first one that I want to kind of go over here is purpose. Okay, so let's just say purpose. So there's different purposes when it comes to the updates. You want to kind of think of this as like a blog article, if you will. And it's really just kind of almost like an email, almost like a blog article. It's almost like a news update in some way, but also it's a great way to incentivize and to excite your backers to continue to support your campaign. So a lot of different purposes, right? But I would say that one of the major ones, honestly, is just to keep people in the loop. So there's to keep them in the loop. The other one is motivation. So motivation would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we just got to the halfway milestone with our campaign. I can't believe we just hit our goal. We smashed through it the way that Sal said I would with the Kickstarter launch formula, which is his best-selling book, right? Whether it's keeping a loop, motivation, whether it's things like sharing, answering questions, whether it's addressing something, some kind of a big issue or something like that. These are all different things that you can do with Kickstarter updates. I would say as well, aside from keeping the loop, there's also some cross promo that you can do with other campaigns when it comes to your updates. So you can, again, think of this almost like a broadcast medium. This is like your own mini newspaper where you can be putting out communications that everyone that has supported the campaign is gonna be notified of those updates which you post. In my opinion, updates are different from different categories, but also when it comes to the live campaign versus the campaign when it's actually done and you're actually fulfilling. So there are updates. When it comes to a live campaign, I'd say the more important ones are going to be motivation, cross promo, getting people rallied up, talking about your add-ons, your stretch goals, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to keeping a loop, this is obviously important, and news announcements, etc. This is going to be way more important when it comes to actually fulfilling your rewards on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because that's where people are going to go to get notified of where are you in the fulfillment process, where are you in the shipping process, when am I going to get my product. So now that you know a little bit of the purpose of Kickstarter updates, and this is kind of how I actually like to break things down when it comes to my coaching students, is trying to help them understand the different purposes, etc., that go into the different phases of the campaign. Let's get into objectives. So what are some of the objectives of updates? Number one could be to get them to get your backers to return to the page. Now, why might you want to get people to return to the Kickstarter page which you actually created? Well, one reason could be that you want them to upgrade maybe their reward tier. So you have a deal that's going to release a new reward tier. You think they should think about this other tier that you have that has tons of value, right? You want to talk up that tier. You want them to help you when it comes to, they come to the page, you see how much you've raised now. They want to help when it comes to sharing that campaign on social media so you can unlock some of your stretch goals, etc. So one is that you want them to return to the page in some way. Two is that you want to have what I call an emotional spike, okay? What is an emotional spike? An emotional spike is just kind of like parlance, if you will, for getting someone to care, getting someone to feel an emotion when it comes to your campaign. So maybe they're resonating with your story as it's currently unfolding. Maybe they feel more trust towards you and your brand as a result of this update that you're doing. Maybe it's even they feel like they are in a really incredible rising tide that's going to lift all ships, and it's so cool that they're part of this campaign. And how amazing would it be if you actually were able to hit this major funding milestone, so they're more likely to actually share the campaign on social media and help you out in that way, or see other people that are engaging in the comments, right? So some kind of an emotional spike is another reason usually when it comes to updates. Number three, I would say, would be legitimate information. So we're just gonna say info when it comes to the products, when it it comes to the fulfillment, when it comes to issues, I'm gonna say PFI, just kind of abbreviate that there. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Info, product, fulfillment issues, all those kinds of things that come up with a crowdfunding campaign. So there's information like I gotta deliver this to backers. I need to make sure that they understand that this is happening, right? Or news announcements. We're doing this new thing where everyone who supports this amount is gonna get this extra thing, or get to choose a different color, or we've released a new reward tier or something like that, right? So there's three, 2 emotional spikes, which we talked about, return to the page, and also it kind of engenders that feeling of community when they're actually returning to the page. So these are just a couple of reasons. There are more purposes, more objectives, I'd say, behind this, but it's from a high level, these are some of the ones that I think you should be aware of. Okay, so when it comes to this, there are different ways of thinking about updates. So for example, I've talked with a lot of first-time creators when it comes to my podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified, when it comes to coaching students, when it comes to everyone. I've been in the industry for a long time now. This is one thing that for some people, it's more intuitive, okay? So by that, I mean like, they're like, oh wow, we launched a campaign, now let's do an update, right? Or like in a week from now, okay, let's do another update. It's very intuitive in that way. Other people, you might be in the audience thinking about this, other people are more likely to plan it out, okay? The different types of personalities that are out there, I'm usually more of like a hybrid personality in that way. I'm like a mutant, right? So I would say for my first tip is to think about creating what's called a content calendar, okay? Content calendar. Now that content calendar doesn't have to have every single update necessarily that you're gonna be doing, but it should think from a high level perspective, like, okay, so I'm doing a campaign for 30 days, right? Or I'm doing a campaign for 60 days, or I'm doing a campaign for 45, whatever it is. If I'm gonna be doing updates, I wanna be doing them maybe on these weeks, maybe on these days potentially, maybe with these subject lines or with these kinds of focuses, right? So like on the second week, I'm gonna announce this really cool, amazing thing that we're doing. And the third week, I'm gonna be doing this. And I plan to do this on the fourth week, while also kind of laying some things for variables. So like there's the content calendar, right? When it comes to the actual subject of the updates. But in addition, I would say brainstorm on that calendar as well. Some interesting ideas that you could maybe start sharing with the community, and leave some room as well for like, okay, maybe on the second week, we're not exactly sure. We might be doing an update in this, or might do one on that. So leave a little bit of room as well for wiggle room, because like I said, it's kind of more of a hybrid process. It's not just all planned out. There's also organic things that happen throughout the campaign. You never know. You could also be one of those campaigns that literally launch, you get funded on the first day, and it's skyrocketing. You might have some different kinds of updates. You might even feel differently related to the campaign. So I do think it makes sense. It behooves you to write a little bit of these out ahead of time if you want to when it comes to the content calendar. But the main one would be subject and brainstorm. If you want to, you could kind of write high level bullet points or write some ideas of what it is that you put together. Really cuts down the workload that way. Make sure you go into the campaign strong. Number two, when it comes to updates, is going to be thinking about frequency. Okay, this is going to kind of play as well into the content calendar. I'm just going to have here. Actually, I'm going to have a different one for number 2. But yeah, so let's say frequency. Oh my gosh, my handwriting is so bad, guys. Say frequency. Okay, so frequency, this is actually a really important topic in my opinion, and one of the things that kind of unlocks a whole new understanding of an actual crowdfunding campaign. So the first thing you want to think about is when people are backing your campaign, why are they doing that? I actually put out a video recently and kind of thinking about the actual profile of your backer, understanding why they're doing that. So it could be, for example, 2 different types of people. So let's just say, I'll put this in different colors so we can say, let's just say we have one example. We have example A, and this campaign, people that are supporting this campaign, it's a really interesting, nifty, X factor, well-designed product. It's not something you need, but it is really freaking cool. It's also at like a little bit of maybe a higher price point, mid-price point, and it's not something that you need, but you see it, it looks so cool, and you make an impulse buy on that, okay? We're just gonna say A, thinking about why people are backing this, we'll just say this is an impulse, okay? And maybe behind that impulse is some kind of great deal you're running. Again, it's really interesting, it's not something you need. It's sort of, one of those things that you just look at it and you're like, this is so cool, I wanna get this, right? Kind of an impulse. And we talk about that in the Kickstarter launch formula, which is my book, walking you through step-by-step how to actually launch one of these campaigns. So this is an impulse buy more so, and people just are kind of grabbing that, and you have that effect, which I talk about raising the buying temperature. I talk about that in my book and how to do that, okay? So B, let's just say this is a different type of person. This person really loves the creator. They really love the artwork. They actually want to be a part of a universe when it comes to the product. Just say it's a board game, for example, and they really are an admirer of the person who's doing the game mechanics, etc. And it's not an impulse buy. It's like something that they really want to have. They'd love to have on their shelf, and it's such a beautiful, well-designed game. And they're more of like a bought-in member, and they're actually engaged in the community as well when it comes to the comments. So really, they're buying it to support. They love the creator. They want to be part of the community. And let's just say also they love the story as it's unfolding, and they think that it's really cool, okay? They think it's really freaking cool. So this person kind of has a different reason for backing that campaign than person A. So for example, for person A, what I might say would be, okay, so you got these backers, right? You don't want to necessarily remind them that they supported your campaign if it was such an impulse buy, because it's very difficult to recreate that feeling that you had when you first bought that impulse product. So a lot of the times what ends up happening with these kinds of campaigns is that if you do too many updates, it reminds people they backed it. They start to question that, and sometimes they either change the amount that they backed it, or they go and they switch to a different campaign, or they just like, you know what, I really couldn't afford this thing. I'm not really interested as much as I thought I was. I'm gonna pull out of this campaign. So if it's more of an impulse buy, that's what I would definitely say when it comes to this. When it comes to B, which is more about community, creator, story, very cool, participating in it, being a flagship owner of that first product when it comes to like a board game, for example, a lot of the times it actually is amazing to do many different updates and people feel a sense of excitement and you're working towards stretch goals, they're participating in the comment section. It's a different style of community, right? So they're kind of different gradients when you think of it in this way. And if you can really identify, again, why people are backing your campaign, that can really help understand the frequency, because it's not the same for every type of product or the same for every type of individual out there. So when it comes to frequency, that would be my answer for you, is really to begin to assess why people are supporting this and the frame of mind that they're in that way. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillment is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillment today. Link in the description. Number 2, and this is something that I would recommend doing, and I think it's really important to do, and it's something that actually an exercise that I engage in as well, which is to put everything through a marketing lens, okay? So we're gonna be talking about the marketing aspect of updates. So again, this is content calendars, I think more logical particularly, and again, there's different sides of the brain. There's a logical and there's more of a creative side, right? So when you're thinking about things, it's important to put them through both filters, if you will, particularly if you're a creator or you're a business owner or something like that. You should be thinking in multiple ways, okay? And the way you do that is by not trying to do it at the same time. You do it one after another, right? So first we're maybe pulling together all the things we think when it comes to the actual updates. Then we go back here, okay, what are the purposes, right? Motivation, cross promo, keeping people in the loop. Objectives, returning to the page, emotional spike, or information. So if we're trying to cause emotional spikes, and I'm gonna put this in a color here that we can see, I'm just gonna do orange here. Let's say we're trying to cause an emotional spike. Of the content calendar we have, the frequency, et cetera, some of the ideas, which ones are more likely to do that? How could we even improve that? How can we make it so it is more of an emotional experience with those particular updates? Or we maybe forgot to include that, right? So go back to the objectives that we're trying to have here and think, does this actual calendar kind of have those marketing components that we talk about? Or returning to the page. Is this something they're gonna get in their email and there's no reason for them to go back to the page? Or are you actually inviting that in some way, whether that's through commenting or replying to the update or checking the new stuff that you've added to the page? The page can be a dynamic asset. It doesn't have to be a static page. Maybe you're adding new stuff to that page, and for that reason, they're more likely to actually return and see what you did. So think a little bit about that. Maybe you actually even strategically left stuff out of the page and you added it in so they go back and they check, right? Or it's a news announcement like information, but the information is more related to motivation, or like, this is so cool, we got on this news outlet, or we did this, right? So think about this and how you can incorporate this into your content calendar, the actual marketing side here. So when it comes to that, you're gonna kind of go through this audit, if you will. I call it an audit, or it could be an evaluation, and just look at your work and be like, okay, so this is great. I'm doing all this different stuff. Here's how we could make it better, right? You're just gonna have a couple of bullet points, be like, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. This is a great time to also book when it comes to a coaching session. I just honestly think that the earlier you do that, the more it can have an impact when it comes to your actual campaign. But when it comes to these updates, a lot of times we think about it in one dimension, right? So it's called like two-dimensional thinking, let's just say. So like you're thinking about it in one dimension, which is, okay, how do we convey this information? What is the calendar like? What are we gonna be doing for the updates? If you think about it in more of a three-dimensional way of thinking about it, it's like, okay, so this is the first way of thinking about it. Now let's look at it from another angle, right? And from this other angle, it's like, okay, so this is all right, but we could also do this when it comes to the marketing. Or we could maybe do a cross promo here. What if we did this? What if we did that? And when you start to shift around your thinking from different perspectives, it leads to a much more unified campaign, if that makes sense. Number 3, okay, this is really important in my opinion when it comes to people who are doing a lot of different stuff. So if you are like wearing a lot of different hats, or you have someone managing your campaign like myself, or you have someone else who's helping you with your campaign, and they're kind of doing this A to Z, and you're like, I want to make sure that I'm staying true to my brand values. I want to make sure I'm staying true to the way that I choose to actually do a business and to put a product out there into the world. And like, I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. If this is one of those people, like for me, sometimes I'll be doing amazing with 1 month and I'll forget something or forget to write about something. I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that, right? The way that you kind of maintain traction and consistency over time is by creating internal policies, okay? So I know this sounds not very sexy or very interesting, but it's actually very important. So what I'm gonna be saying here, number 3, is to think about what I set up here, which is keeping in the loop, which is the next purpose, right, behind the updates. I would say create a policy, okay? And this is an internal company policy. And this could be a policy even just related to the Kickstarter campaign, but a lot of the times, it actually works with a lot of the campaigns that I've worked on that turn into then e-commerce products. A lot of these values, brand ethos, colors even, right, trademark kind of things when it comes to that, and policies related to the campaign actually extend when they start to, it kind of lays the foundation for their entire company. It lays the foundation for the values of the company. It lays the foundation from the ways in which they interact with the customer in the future. However, once you begin to work with more people, beyond just yourself, you need to have a way of communicating this. Otherwise, they might not know that, and they might not, keep you on track with the things that you're trying to do, the objectives that you have. So think about a policy as it relates to keeping the people in loop. So what are some of the policies, for example, that you might have? So let's just say we have one policy which says, okay, so if this happens, or this happens, we are gonna make sure to notify backers. And it's like a policy, it's set in writing so that everyone on your team understands that if any of these things happen, we need to do a Kickstarter update. So what could be some of those things? That could be a delay in shipping. We're going sideways here with writing, right? Delay in shipping, for example. Let's just say you experience a delay of some kind and it's a month and you're like, okay, man, we got a delay. Maybe I should do an update. Okay, I guess I'll do an update. Then maybe you forget about it. It's been 3 weeks. Someone discovers you had a delay. They post as a comment. All of a sudden everyone is upset and you're like, oh, I knew I was supposed to do an update. I just forgot about it, right? If it's in a policy that anytime there's a delay, then you have to do an update, it's gonna be much more likely you comply with that. So one could be a delay, another could be like a resource shortage, okay? So we'll just say resources, manufacturer, right? Something like that. It could be related to duties, tariffs, like whatever's world events. Think about the policies when it comes to the informational, keeping in the loop updates, and really just ask yourself, hey, if I was a backer, is this a reason why I'd wanna be notified? Would I really wanna know about this news? Is this something that's important? And if you can create a rock solid, foundation, if you will, of policies, that's really gonna be the best way of thinking about this. In addition, when you book a coaching call with me, or if you kind of have someone else look at this, they can look at those and be like, okay, so this is a good policy. You should also make sure you add this to it. You should add this, you should add this. And we can make sure then you're on the right foot when it comes to actually running your campaign, if that makes sense. So I know this sounds like a lot of stuff that I'm covering right now, but honestly, this is some of the stuff that's literally so incredibly valuable that this is almost like a boot camp for you, man. When it comes to doing a campaign, all these things are gonna actually apply as well to your e-commerce business, or whether it's your artistic work, your any other kind of business you're trying to grow out of this, even just a side passion of yours. This is so incredibly important when it comes to the genesis of starting this whole new project. So this is why I go over these. This is why it's very important. And no one else out there is talking about this stuff. So if you really love my work, if you want to support in some way, number one, go and grab a copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. They are doing a free promo on Audible, which is freaking cool, man. They're doing a free promo where you can actually listen to this on the car. Obviously, you can listen to this when you're in the car, sorry. You can listen to this on the way to work. You can listen to this when you're jogging. You can listen to this when you're cleaning the room, whatever it is you're trying to do, right? You can be listening and learning at the same time. And that's one of the things that I'm dedicated to, and so many students that have been successful are dedicated to, is that they're really a lifelong learner. They're willing to go through the training. They're willing to go through the experiences because they know it's gonna be so valuable for them when they're actually in the trenches, because around what's next, around what's around the next bend, right? You know that, for example, I should be doing this and not that, right? You know where the buried treasure is, and that'll actually unlock that treasure chest, and you can kind of just follow the map very easily once you actually understand that. Versus if you don't, you're kind of one of those other people out there just kind of like hunting around, trying to find it, trying to understand what you should do, what you shouldn't do. Maybe you have a wild lion behind the next corner and you didn't even realize that, right? When you have a map to help you understand, go from point A to point B faster, it just makes so much sense, right? So go and check out the Kickstarter launch formula when it comes to that. In addition, I do one-on-one coaching calls with students who are serious about launching their campaigns. If you think that's a good fit for you, it is an investment. It's something where you should do a little bit of research as well when it comes to my videos, my podcast, etc. I like to work with people who are very serious about what they're doing, who are also passionate, they want to have some fun, but they also do want to be successful, right, with their campaign, and they want to change the world in some way. So they're not doing anything kind of like nefarious or weird or anything like that, but they really want to have a positive impact, if you will, and they believe that they can. If that's something that sounds exciting to you, you can learn more about my coaching program down below to book a one-on-one coaching call with me, as well as some of the other stuff I got going. And finally, I got a free course out there on Kickstarter, which you can check out. I believe I'll have a link down below. I'll make sure that gets added. But thank you so much. My name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for supporting my work as I'm on this mission to demystify crowdfunding for millions of people around the world. Thank you so much for being a part of this mission with me. And again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.